Hello and welcome to the Bits of Good Bootcamp. Today we're going to go over how we can use Axios to make HTTP requests from our JavaScript files. So what I've done here so far is just create an npm package here so that I have my package.json, and I've just gone ahead and installed Axios as a dependency. So you can say npm install Axios. That's all I've done so far. And then I've created a file here where I've imported Axios. And then I'm going to be demoing the Bits of Good Reddit API that we've created for Bootcamp. So I just have a variable here, URL, for that. So the first thing that we're going to do here is we're just going to make a GET request using Axios. So it's going to be axios.get, and then you're going to pass in the URL. And then here we're going to use promises, but you also have the option of using callbacks. So we're going to use .then, and we're going to say response. And I just want to console.log the response so that we can see what we get. And so I have my terminal here on the right, and then let's run this. And you're going to see that we get quite a bit of information here. And the reason for this is because the response object has a lot of information about what we got back. It has, for example, our status and the text and the headers from the server, some config information. This is like the request object that we sent, and there should be probably a response somewhere here. This looks like response. And anyways, this is a little bit too much information, and so what we really want is this data key. And I'm also going to change this URL to be posts instead of just the root. And instead of console.logging response, I'm going to console.log response.data. And let's go ahead and run this one again. And you're going to see now this is much more useful to us. So we have our status, so this is something that the server is sending us, as well as the posts, and so this is an array of the posts that are loaded on our Reddit API right now. So this is a very basic example of how we can use a GET request. So you notice here that we had to do response.data because we didn't want this really big object. We just wanted the data that was inside of the response. So instead of saying response.data here, this is just a little shortcut you can use. We can actually use object destructuring, which is a JavaScript ES6 feature, and this is going to give us the exact same thing. So I'm going to run this again just to show you, and you can see that this is the exact same thing. And so what this is doing, you can read up on this on your own. It's just called ES6, JavaScript ES6 object destructuring. But you see we have curly brackets, so it's basically saying, okay, inside of this parameter, I'm going to look for a key named data, and then I'm going to save it to a variable named data, and that's how we have this. So just to clarify, if we said response and response.data, these are exactly the same thing. For the rest of this video, I'm going to go ahead and use the object destructuring way because it's a little bit cleaner, it's a little bit less to type, but just know that they're the exact same thing. Okay. So we've made a GET request, that's awesome. Now what if we wanted to make a POST request? Like let's say we want to save a new post to our database. And so the way we do that is we just say axios.post, and then we need to pass in the URL again, and then the next thing that we're going to pass in is going to be our data. And so I'm just going to make this an inline object here, and the required fields I know for this endpoint are author, and so I'm going to say Andre. And then I need a title, title, and we'll say demo, and then text, and we'll say hello. Alright, and then I'm going to go ahead and comment this out. And then I also want to add a .then here, and I want to see what we're going to get back. And again, I'm going to use object destructuring, and I'm just going to console.log the data. And so we have my formatting here, makes it look nice and pretty for us. I'm going to adjust our screen size. So we can see here we have axios.post with the first parameter being the URL, and then the second parameter is actually the information, the data that we want to post to the backend. And notice that this is just a JavaScript object. Alright, let's go ahead here and run this and see what we get. Cool. So we're getting a status of OK, that means everything worked out. And we see that this is the post that we just created. We have the author is Andre, the title is demo, and the text is hello. So I'm going to comment this out, and I'm going to go back to the GET, and I'm going to run that GET again, and we should see that the new post we just created shows up as well. And of course, we do see that. So here's our new post. So at this point, we've figured out how to use axios.get as well as axios.post. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to show an example of using a patch request. And so what a patch request is used for is when you want to edit data on the database. And so what we need is an ID. So I'm going to copy here this ID of the post we just created. I'm going to say const post ID is going to be equal there. And then I'm going to use axios.patch. And again, we're going to need the URL. And then we're going to need another data object. And so for a data object in the patch, we just need to include whatever information we want to overwrite. And so what I want to overwrite is I want to change the text to say hello John instead of just saying hello. And so what I'm going to say here, I'm going to pass in text. And I'm going to say hello John. And then I'm going to get a .then here, and I want to use data. And let's just console.log the response we get. Cool. And oh, I missed something here. So in addition, we need the ID. And the reason why we need the ID is because when we're sending this patch request to the server, what we're saying is, hey, I want you to edit a specific data model that you have in your database. And so we need the ID to tell it, well, which data model are we editing? And so the way that we're going to do this is we're going to actually have to change the URL here. So it's going to be posts, but then it's going to be slash and then the ID. Actually, I'm just going to pop this in here to make it simple. So notice that we edited the URL. So now it's the base URL, and then posts is our API endpoint, and then this is the ID that we're sending. And so if you take a second here to think back in Express World, I'm just going to write a little bit of code here just to visualize. This would map to a request on Express, or an endpoint on Express that looks like this. Oops, sorry about that. Patch, and then this would say post, and probably like ID, and then we have our rec and res, and then our code that does something. So this is just like a brief reminder for you, just so you can make sure you understand how this is working. We have posts, which is our endpoint here, and then this ID is going to be captured in Express as a URL parameter. And so yeah, that's what that endpoint looks like. You don't need to worry about that right now because the Bits of Good tech team has already created this, but I just wanted to show you so you understand what's going on. Okay, so we have our URL with the ID properly inserted, and then I'm making an axios.patch, and I want to change hello John, and I'm going to go ahead and send this request. And we're going to see that we're getting a post back that has the updated text. So this is exactly what we wanted. Just to double check again, I'm going to make a GET request to all of it, to just the root. I'm going to have to get rid of this ID now. And so this is going to go to Bits of Good reddit.herokuapp.com/posts. And let's see what we get here. This is again all of the posts that are in our database so far, and we see that the text has been updated to hello John. So at this point, we've gone over how to create a new document. That was the post, what we have right here. That's creating. We've gotten over how to read. That's getting right here. And we've also gone over how to edit. There's two more things I want to show you, and then we're going to wrap up. The first thing I want to show you is that instead of just getting the general list of all the objects that are in the database on a certain API endpoint, here, for example, we have 2, sometimes you might just want to get 1. And the way that we would do that is very similar to how we used the patch. And I'm just going to send a GET request with posts and then an ID, but the actual Axios request stays the exact same. The only thing that's changing really is the URL. And now what we should see is that instead of getting both documents back here, we should just get the one that matches with the ID. Let's go ahead and try it. And we see that indeed I just got the 1. Okay, the very last thing that I want to show you is how to delete something using Axios. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this URL the same. I'm going to delete this document that we just made. And the way I'm going to do that is by saying, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to say axios.delete, and then I'm going to send the URL, and then we'll just get a .then, and we'll see the data that we get back, and we'll just console.log that. Alright, so again, the important thing to note here, we need to tell the database, we need to tell the server which document we want to delete, and the way that we're doing that is inside of the URL. There's nothing else I have to pass to the delete function other than the URL. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and send this, and we're going to see we have status OK, deleted success. So if indeed the delete worked properly, I should be able to go and get all of the posts. So I'm getting rid of this ID, can get rid of it. And now if I send a GET request just to the posts endpoint, we should see that document we created is no longer there. So let's try it. And indeed, now we only have one document. This is the same document we started with, and the Hello John demo document is now gone. Awesome, guys. So at this point, we've gone over all of the main functions that you need from Axios to be able to send requests to and from. So good luck, and make sure you ask if you have any questions.